Have you heard what the Department for Work and Pensions has just confirmed? Starting soon, the rules around home ownership and pension eligibility are about to change, and these new criteria could affect thousands of pensioners across the United Kingdom. For years, the DWP has used your income, savings, and assets to determine what you're entitled to, whether it's pension credit, housing benefit, or other forms of support. But now, in a major policy shift, the government is moving to tighten the criteria for those who own property, even modest homes, meaning that some retirees who currently qualify for support could soon find themselves reassessed under stricter standards. This isn't just another policy headline. It's a real, practical change that could determine whether you continue receiving help with your living costs, council tax, or winter heating bills. The DWP has said that the move is aimed at ensuring fair distribution of benefits, but many experts are already warning that it may hit lower-income pensioners the hardest, especially those who own their homes but still struggle with day-to-day expenses. Imagine having paid your mortgage for 30 or 40 years, only to be told that the value of your small home could now reduce your entitlement. That's the heart of the debate right now: asset-rich but cash-poor pensioners being caught in the middle of new DWP guidelines. In this video, we'll break down exactly what's changing, why it's happening, who will be affected, and most importantly, what you can do now to prepare and protect your benefits before these new rules take effect. So if you're a UK pensioner, homeowner, or nearing retirement, stay with us, because what's coming could shape not just your finances, but your sense of security in the years ahead. Now, let's take a proper look at what these new DWP home ownership rules really mean, because behind all the political language and policy announcements, there are real people who will feel the effects of these changes. The Department for Work and Pensions has confirmed that they're reviewing how property ownership influences entitlement to certain benefits, particularly pension credit and housing support. The argument is that some pensioners who own homes outright are technically considered to have enough assets to manage without additional public help, even though, in reality, many of them are living on fixed or modest incomes and struggling with day-to-day costs. The DWP's goal, according to official statements, is to ensure fairness and sustainability in the benefit system. What that means in practice is that they're planning to tighten the definitions of who qualifies as needing support. Up until now, owning your own home wasn't necessarily a disadvantage when it came to receiving certain types of pension-related help, because the value of your main residence was generally not counted as part of your assessable assets. But under the new proposals, this may start to change in subtle but significant ways. There's talk that the department may begin factoring in property value thresholds, especially for those who own more than one property or live in homes that are considered to have a high market value, even if the pensioner is still on a low income. For example, let's say you're a retired couple living in a home you bought decades ago for £40,000, and now it's worth £350,000 due to rising property prices. You might have no savings and rely heavily on your state pension and pension credit to make ends meet. Under the new DWP review, your home's current value could potentially be considered in assessing your eligibility, meaning you might receive reduced benefits or none at all. The reasoning behind it, as the department explains, is that those with high-value assets, even if those assets aren't easily spendable, are technically in a stronger position than renters or those without property. Of course, this logic has caused a lot of backlash. Many charities, including Age UK, have raised serious concerns, saying that pensioners shouldn't be penalised for owning their homes, especially when that home is their only security and cannot easily be sold or converted into income. For many seniors, selling up isn't an option. Their home represents decades of hard work, emotional connection, and stability. Asking them to downsize or release equity at this stage of life feels unfair and impractical. But from the government's point of view, they're trying to manage an aging population, rising benefit costs, and growing pressure on public finances. Another significant part of the reform involves how means testing will be carried out. The DWP is looking at more integrated data systems that allow automatic cross-checking of property ownership, bank accounts, and even investment portfolios. The idea is to make the process more accurate and efficient, but it also means that fewer cases will slip through the cracks. This may sound reasonable in theory, But for pensioners who depend on every pound of pension credit, it could be worrisome. Because if there's even a small discrepancy between what's recorded and what you actually have, payments could be delayed or even suspended while the DWP reviews your case. To understand the context, it helps to remember that this review comes at a time when the government is under pressure to reduce public spending. The state pension itself is protected by the triple lock, meaning it rises every year based on the highest of inflation, wage growth, or 2.5%. That's great news for pensioners, but it also means the DWP must find savings elsewhere in the welfare budget to balance the books. So, in essence, these tighter criteria around home ownership are part of a broader plan to target help more narrowly, giving benefits only to those deemed to be in genuine financial need. The tricky part is that need isn't always easy to define. On paper, someone who owns a house worth £300,000 might look comfortable. But in reality, they might be surviving on nothing more than their basic state pension, trying to stretch it across rising energy bills, council tax, and food prices that have gone up nearly 25% in just a few years. These are the pensioners often described as asset-rich but cash-poor. They may have property wealth, but very little disposable income. And under these new DWP assessments, they could be at risk of losing some of the modest support they currently rely on. So, what exactly does this mean for everyday pensioners across the UK? It means you'll need to pay closer attention to how your financial situation is presented when you apply for or renew benefits. It also means that if you own additional property, say, a small inherited house or a piece of land, it's almost certain to affect your eligibility moving forward. Even if that property isn't producing income, the DWP may consider its value as potential capital you could use to support yourself. Some experts are already predicting that this could push more retirees to explore equity release schemes, where you borrow against your property's value without selling it outright. While this might sound like a solution, financial advisors are urging caution. Equity release can reduce the inheritance you leave behind and can also affect your entitlement to means-tested benefits even further. It's a complex issue, and the DWP's upcoming rule changes could make it even more complicated. What's also concerning is how these changes will interact with local council support schemes. Housing benefit for pensioners is being phased out in favour of pension credit top-ups and the housing element within universal credit for mixed-age couples. As these systems merge, the DWP is gaining more control and visibility over all forms of benefit payments. This centralization means that any changes in one benefit can ripple through others. So, if your entitlement to pension credit changes because of your home ownership status, you might also see adjustments in your council tax reduction, winter fuel payment, or cold weather payment eligibility. For many pensioners, that's a daunting thought. It's not just about losing a few pounds a week, it's about the uncertainty of not knowing what's coming next. The DWP insists that these adjustments will be implemented gradually and with clear communication. But if history is anything to go by, the rollout may still cause confusion. Remember the early days of universal credit? Many retirees remember those hiccups vividly: delays, letters arriving late, or conflicting advice from different departments. That's why staying informed now is so important. If you're wondering when exactly these new rules will take effect, the DWP has indicated that the implementation will likely begin in mid-2025, with pilot testing starting earlier in certain regions. Letters and online notifications are expected to go out months in advance to those who could be directly affected. So, if you receive any correspondence from the DWP asking you to update or confirm your property details, don't ignore it. Make sure the information you provide is accurate, as false or incomplete declarations can lead to repayment demands later on. Another point worth noting is that the DWP plans to introduce a home ownership verification system linked to the land registry, allowing them to automatically verify who owns what property. This will make it harder for people to underreport assets, but it also means fewer errors or delays due to paperwork. The department argues that it will create a fairer and faster process overall, though critics fear it will feel intrusive for older citizens who value their privacy. Beyond the technicalities, there's a deeper issue here, one that touches on the social contract between the state and its older citizens. For generations, the message from government was simple: work hard, save for your retirement, and if you manage to buy your own home, you'll have security in your later years. Now, some pensioners feel as though that promise is being rewritten. The idea that home ownership, once the ultimate sign of stability, could now count against you when applying for support doesn't sit well with many people. That's why this conversation is so important. It's not about politics or party lines. It's about fairness and respect for those who built this country, people who spent their lives paying taxes, contributing to the system, and now deserve clarity and dignity as they age. Whether these DWP changes ultimately lead to a fairer, more efficient system or create new financial pressures remains to be seen. But what's certain is that pensioners across the UK need to stay alert, informed, and proactive. So, over the next few months, keep an eye on your mail, the DWP website, and trusted news sources. Be wary of misinformation on social media. There are already false claims spreading that the DWP is seizing homes or cancelling pensions outright. Those are exaggerations. What's really happening is a tightening of criteria, not the removal of rights. You will still receive your state pension as usual. What may change are the top-up benefits that depend on your overall financial situation. At the end of the day, this is about preparation. Knowing what's ahead, understanding your rights, and making informed choices now can prevent a lot of stress later. And that's exactly why this video exists, to give you the facts before the changes arrive, so you're ready when they do. Because in times like these, knowledge truly is power.